Welcome to Old Guy Tech,
the OGT.TV recording studio.
Technology for the rest of us.
Hi, this is Rob Charny, and we're here with Prime Beat on Old Guy Tech TV, and I have with me my good friend John DiAgostini. John, once again, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Rob.
And we have an interesting day today. We have the opportunity. This is the day after the big election, and so the sheriff and I have been just talking about some of the things that took place and how the votes went and how people feel today. We both believe the sky is bluer today.
Yes, we do.
Maybe it should be redder, though, right?
It's all right.
Look at the maps.
It's all right.
Yeah. So, So, caught me surprised. Now, I don't know. I know you stick to your guns pretty good, but I really went into yesterday thinking that Hillary was going to win. And I'm glad to see it didn't happen. How about you? Where were you in this thing?
Well, I was cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
My wife was very optimistic. She said it's
her.
going to be a landslide. You just watch. And, of course, she's a prayer warrior and really all about that.
Yep.
And last night, it was very exciting watching the whole way things turned and how they happened, and then all the way up till midnight, and then them calling Pennsylvania. I was very, very pleased, and I think that we finally have a shot of getting this country turned back around, back to we talked about the term a minute ago,
right.
Constitutional republic,
Right.
as it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Not a constitutional democracy that we just heard Hillary in her concession speech say at least two times, maybe I heard it three, but at least two times use that term, constitutional democracy. That's not what we are.
Right.
And that's one of the main problems with this country is we have a constitution that governs and a rule of law that governs. And when you have folks that ignore that and make laws and rules and regulations that go beyond the authority and the scope of the Constitution or the representative, the legislature and the executive or the judicial, when they're crossing those boundaries that by the Constitution they're not supposed to.
Right.
That's why you end up with the things we have going on in this country today.
Right.
I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm 100% there. And I know I get bashed from a lot of even my good friends that are a bit more liberal than I am, and I'm not going to stand up and gloat, but I'm going to say that if you look how this vote went, and I've said it before and I'm going to say it again, California is totally out of touch with the rest of the heartland. Okay?
Absolutely.
And absolutely, totally out of touch. And I think this is a bit of a wake-up call a little bit for the uber liberals out there. They're still going to push their agenda. Nothing's going to change in California, unfortunately. I pretty much have written it off. But there's hope. There's a little bit. But when we look at some of these propositions, the past, you kind of go, what?
Well, but here's where the hope comes, in my opinion. We just elected Donald Trump president.
Right.
Who has come out and said when he was asked, I believe it was at the last debate, what he looks for in a Supreme Court justice nominee. And he talked about, I believe the term was, maybe wrong, but a constructionist constitutionalist, construction. What our founding fathers believed and what they meant when they wrote that document.
Right.
If we have, and he now has the opportunity in 4 years for at least one seat, if he gets his full 2 terms, probably 3 seats,
right?
Maybe 4, which would just be a swap of a conservative for a conservative. But he has an opportunity, we have an opportunity as a nation to reinstill in our Supreme Court that constructionist constitution mindset that can fix some of these issues that we're talking about. For instance, today, last night, California passed Proposition 63. When, not today, not tomorrow, but when the Supreme Court is reestablished based on the Constitution and constructionist interpretation of the Constitution and the correct cases brought before them, we can fix a lot of these problems. We can fix a lot of them. where we're going in this country with AB 109, then Prop 47, and now we passed Prop 57 yesterday. That's going to release more knuckleheads into our communities, and crime is going to go up again. Again, when these correct cases get before our Supreme Court and get back to states' rights and the constitutional authority of the rule of law in the 10th Amendment and the 8th Amendment, and all of them, really.
Right.
The
whole Bill of Rights in
The
particular.
Bill of Rights, specifically the 10. We have an opportunity to really set these things back on track from a democracy or mob rule. That's what a democracy is, purely mob rule.
Right.
Founding fathers knew that. They talked about it in their deliberations on the Constitution. They didn't want to see a democracy. They saw history, democracies fail.
Right.
That's why they set it up the way they did.
Well, that's why we have the Electoral College. They understood.
That's right. They understood.
And a lot of people they don't even understand what that was. There's a lot of kids that even haven't heard the term, Electoral College. So I recommend that everybody go and read
it was so
about
states like California and New York and Florida can't rule everybody else.
Exactly. So, and one of the things that, as we look at this, and there's hope, and I think that maybe President Trump will have an opportunity to have 2 Supreme Court justices, because I think Ginsburg, she's getting up there in age, and she's almost is 90 now, I think. So maybe he'll have an opportunity to get 2. And the other thing we haven't discussed is the fact that both houses are now Republican controlled.
Absolutely.
So,
which we did discuss is a good thing.
Yep.
But I believe for the first year or 2, it's going to be a challenge for him, because they don't want him. He's anti-establishment, and all of them are establishment. And until he can prove to the American people, which he will, he has to, that he can do the job, that this is the right direction, and he starts getting buy-in and picking off seats, then he'll have that luxury of being able to use both houses for the end means.
Right. And you talked about it earlier. Before the show, we talked a little bit about the things. His cabinet choices are going to be really important.
Huge.
And it'll be interesting to see who he starts selecting, because we know he's been working on it, so it'll be interesting to see who accepts it. I'm sure there were a lot of people that until this election was over with went, whoa, I'm not going there yet. But I think it will be very interesting to see where we go, who's going to be Secretary of State. In particular, there's an awful lot going on the federal side. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how President Trump puts his cabinet in what we head in. You talked about in California a little bit, so that one of the bills that for me was just shows the ignorance of our voters, simply because I don't think they understood what was written, is in Proposition 63, which is basically an ammunition. I don't want to call it a ban, but it certainly is an ammunition constriction law, which is going to make it very difficult for us, you and I, to actually purchase ammunition without. They're talking about you're going to have to buy a license. It's going to have to be renewed annually. You're going to have a first background check.
You're going to have to qualify for that license.
So you're going to have that background check. So when things first roll out, there's going to be, I think, a 30-day period or something before you can even buy ammunition. Now, how's that constitutional? The bill's totally crazy. And of course, he put in there no high cap magazines. Well, guess what, Gavin? We already have that law, which was in itself is crazy.
Well, yes, but this one there's no grandfather clause. There's nothing. They're flat out banned.
Exactly. Now, I was going to talk about that. Okay, so there are a number of the gun organizations already are going to be going to the Ninth Circuit, and they're going to be saying this is certainly not constitutional. You cannot make somebody that already owns something and say, all right, I have a 30-round magazine for my AR. Now I can no longer own that. I have to dispose of it. And my understanding on the disposal, even how you go about doing that, is enumerated in here. It's very difficult. You have to either destroy it, right, or you have to ship it out of state, or you have to turn it into a dealer who deals in high-capacity magazines, or you have to go over to a law enforcement agency and turn it in.
Correct.
And you can't have them at all. First of all, I hate to say this, but I don't believe that the majority of people are going to abide by
No,
that.
they're not going to. No, they're not going to. It's an unenforceable law. Law enforcement doesn't have time to deal with this. We're dealing with Prop 47, AB 109. We're dealing with a surge in crime throughout our state, although in El Dorado County we're still blessed. We're still flat, if not down.
Right.
I hesitate to say this. I've said it a few times. My staff about knock me in the head every time I say it, but this is the first time since we've been keeping records in the new system. We haven't had a homicide yet this year. It's amazing. We're very, very blessed. But law enforcement doesn't have time for this. Now, in El Dorado, I've been asked this many times, and that's why I want to say it now, because I'm sure the question's coming from you. How are we going to handle this law in El Dorado County?
Exactly.
I've said it. The law is the law. I am sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The Constitution of the State of California incorporates all these laws through the Penal Code, the Government Code, the Health and Safety Code, and so forth and so on. So it is the law of the land. We don't have time. We just don't have time for this. Now, are there going to be times where we got a knucklehead who's got other crimes that are there, and this 30-round magazine that he also has, and maybe the stolen
Of course it's
AR?
gonna be stolen. Everything's going to
You
have
know,
to be stolen.
we're going to use that as a tool.
Sure.
Absolutely. But are we going to be actively going out and looking at our citizens in El Dorado County and using that? Absolutely not. We do not have time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're not going to be going out and knocking on doors and saying,
No.
turn them in.
No.
But I understand. Let me though throw out this scenario. Let's say that for some reason, individual, even if he has this 30-round magazine, he wants to go to the range and shoot, and he gets pulled over, and there's a situation where it's just a traffic stop or violations, nothing serious on that, and the officer mentioned this. Do you have any guns? Being honest, he says, yes, I do. They're locked up and stored the same way they are. He says, may I see them? You show them to him, and there's a 30-round magazine in there.
Well, first of all, the deputy is going to have probable cause to pull you over in the first place,
Okay.
which is probably an infraction.
Right.
And one of the only good little things in the law is possession of that right now, in and of itself. The first offense is an infraction.
Right.
So we're not in the business in the sheriff's office of enforcing the traffic laws. We use them as tools. That's not our primary objective. We have CHP for that. But we do use it as a tool.
Right.
So again, we are not going to have time for this.
Yeah. Well, so
I would encourage-
It might be a ticket, is what you're saying, right?
Or nothing. I would encourage folks, until this gets fixed, that they don't possess 30-round magazines.
Right.
I would encourage folks.
And you have to do that. I understand that, and I agree with it. So if you're going to go to the range, just make sure that you take your 10-round magazines with you and do what you have to do. Everybody has to make a decision.
These laws need to get fixed.
They need to
like
get
I said,
fixed.
and that goes back to the Supreme Court. And we have an opportunity now to get the Supreme Court stacked so that we can fix it.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, certainly on a federal level, but we still have an issue with the Ninth Circuit.
Yes.
And
But the neat thing about that and the way that it works, which was an offshoot of the Constitution that the state or the Congress may set up as many, I can't remember the term, but other courts as deemed necessary. That's where we got our appellate courts.
Okay.
There's the remedy is the Supremes.
Right.
That's the remedy.
Right.
Right now, the appellate, because of the way the Supremes are set up right now and the balance there, they just choose not to hear it.
Right.
They choose not to hear it. Now, once in a while, it's so egregious and it's so pressing that they have to. McDonald, Heller, those cases, they don't have a choice. They're going to have to hear them. Well, now they're going to be able to when he gets those appointments, they'll be able to pick and choose those other ones too.
You think Chief Justice Roberts now might go more to his conservative side and be willing to hear more of these things, because he's been walking a middle ground, maybe slightly, unfortunately, left. I mean, he was put in the office supposedly as a conservative, and he's not showing himself so in the voting. And I'm wondering, is it getting along with, in his eyes, getting along with those that are in power now? Do you think he may change? Interesting question. I just now thought about
that's an interesting question, and I don't know. I think part of the problem is that the Supreme Court justices, and for the most part, all of them except for Antonin, before he passed, he was kind of the really odd man out.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they have become so ingrained with the political aspect of the Supreme Court. And maybe ingrained is the wrong term, but they drank so much dang Kool-Aid, maybe is the right term to use,
right,
that they're there. That's where their mind is now. But that's why it will be a breath of fresh air
yeah,
to have some new, fresh minds in there.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we are obviously going to see how things go, and I hope that President Trump's 4 years is a good one, and that if so, and he proves himself as a good president, he gets a second term. It's certainly going to be interesting to see on that. Let's talk again. Let's go back to local a little bit. Let's talk about the marijuana situation. How is law enforcement going to deal with that? Because it legalizes the use for
it's 64 is right. Troubling. And I was very opposed to that. I actually was able to get some TV air on some commercials opposing Prop 64. It's not going to fix California's problems. It's supposed to be this big panacea with all this tax revenue that we're going to be able to funnel that back to public safety and to education and to social service and whatnot. The problem with Prop 64 is we still have Proposition 215 on the books, the medicinal side of it. So the argument that everybody's going to go straight and it's all of a sudden going to be this taxable commercial industry is ridiculous, because you're going to have these growers or these distributors that are doing all this business, and they're going to hide behind the medicine curtain of taxation where they don't have to. They're not taxed. So that's not going to be revealed in this bill, in this proposition. It's not going to fix it. In El Dorado County, and I've spoken on this show before about, we had Ordinance 5000 that was supposed to put some reasonable restrictions on cultivation within the county. Right. I've said before, it was the biggest mistake of my administration when I sat at that table with both sides of the aisle, came up with, both sides of the argument came up with Ordinance 5000. The county passed it. What it did was it didn't, even though it was supposed to have those, and it does have those reasonable regulations, all it did was put a big sign on El Dorado County that says we allow it. Right. And it's out of control. A new committee has since been formed by the Board of Supervisors after my pleading and others' pleading back in, I believe it was March of this year, to repeal 5000. They chose not to do that. They chose to form another committee to come up with a plan to either repeal it, amend it, fix it, and come up with a new plan. And they're right now, I believe, at the end of that process. And what I am hoping comes out of it, I'm heard it's on the table, and I myself and our DA have both been in support of, is some stiff civil penalties for violating it. So right now, and having it all in one place that's easy to read. Right now, we have it, but there's really no penalty for it. And our district attorney can't prosecute. He won't prosecute just straight marijuana cases because he's lost a couple in trial. And while I don't agree with him, he still needs to prosecute those huge grows that are obviously commercial. Commercial, right. He can't, because it's his ethical obligation as a DA not to waste the taxpayers' dollars on a case he knows he can't win before a jury. Right. So what we are asking for and what is being proposed, and actually both sides are agreeing to it so far, is some stiff civil penalties. So that the way it will work now is, and I believe that the word will go around, the word will get around once we start implementing it, if it's passed this way, is we go out, say you're allowed, it's the same 2, 4, 600 square feet, just like it reads now. But law enforcement is not one of the chief, the point on it all. Code enforcement is.
Oh.
We have a code enforcement officer go with the deputy. They go out to a garden. You're out of compliance. You have 3 days to bring it into compliance. By the way, here's a citation. Press hard. There's 3 copies. And if you fail to, it's $1,000 a day. And then we come back in 3 days, and it's still in operation the exact same way. And we say, oh, okay, you're still in operation. Press hard. Here's another citation. And you already owe us $3,000. And we come back 2 weeks later. Oh, you're still in operation. That's another $14,000. And we start hitting them where it hurts.
Right.
The word will get out, and they'll go somewhere else.
So I'm going to be honest, and I did not really study Prop 64. I just voted no. And I don't understand. Do you have the verbiage? I mean, exactly what it does. I understand it's something like can you have an ounce or something?
You can possess it and smoke it and use marijuana recreationally. It doesn't talk about cultivation. It doesn't talk about everything else. You can use it recreationally.
How are you supposed to obtain it legally?
The problem.
Is that the problem?
You'll be able to.
Oh.
It's sets up that whole scheme with the registry. You can have all these different licenses for cultivation, for for sales, for distribution, all these different types of licenses, all these license fees structures, sets up all of that. So, but one of the problems we have, and Colorado's told us, you guys, this is what you're going to see.
Right.
And we know.
Yeah, they know it too. Yeah.
One of the biggest issues is driving under the influence. Mm-hmm. So there is no presumptive test for and limit for being under the influence of marijuana. With alcohol, it's 0.08.
Right.
Even if your driving isn't impaired, if you're operating a motor vehicle on a highway and your blood alcohol level is 0.08 or more, it is presumptive that you are impaired, and it is a violation.
Okay.
We don't have any way to measure that right
so
now.
There was no language in this.
And what's that?
There was no language in it for it.
And our federal government has never approved, or the states have not approved, a means to come up with that, and the studies and the funding to come up with that presumptive level. I've been told that we're working on it, that they're starting to work on it, but we're not there. So what do you do? I mean, there's no way we're going to have to prove impairment. And then you got to prove that it was the marijuana that was the reason for the impairment. So it's a big fallacy that this is going to work. It's not working in Colorado. It's not working in Washington. It's not working. Now all of a sudden it's going to work in California. It's not going to happen. But the ordinance that the county is going after is okay under the law. Mm-hmm. And counties it's been deemed already that counties have this right to do that, to limit it in such a way. But the recreational side of it is going to be out of control. And then if you get them for whatever violations that we're able to get for marijuana, they're going to hide behind Prop 215 and say it's medicine. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. The problem is, and I've said it before on this show, it's not California and these other states that have approved or passed legalization of marijuana for medicine, for recreational use, for whatever you want to call it, is in violation of federal law. Mm-hmm. Because federal law says it's still a Schedule I drug. So we've ignored the law. Right. When you ignore the law, you end up with these crazy regulations and rules that are just out of control. If we don't like the law under a constitutional republic, we've changed the law. It was just tried. They just tried to change it through the federal government, through the U.S. Food FDA, to reclassify it from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 2.
Mm-hmm.
They denied it. They said, no, it's not there yet. But we still are passing these kind of laws in direct violation of federal law. Maybe Trump will change that because the Obama administration has said we are not going to investigate this stuff. Trump may come back and he said many times that we're a nation of laws.
Right.
We need law and order. He may come back and tell the DEA, hey, it's a federal violation. Go out, go forth and prosper. And then what are these states going to do? The question of, are they going to cut federal funding because we have these other laws that are in violation of federal law? I don't know. Could happen.
Yeah, it's it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. And anyway, so I thought I'd ask that one because I couldn't figure out how you're going to enforce that.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You know, how about the other thing that, of course, is the removing of the California bullet button now. There's another law that, how's law enforcement going to deal with this? I see it probably just going over at the boneheads that steal them anyway. But, what's really interesting, the only thing that makes these guns, the so-called assault guns, is a pistol grip and a flash suppressor.
Or a collapsible stock.
Or a collapsible stock. You remove those, you only have to remove 2 of the 3. So if you get rid of your pistol grip, and most of them don't have flash suppressors anymore, the muzzle brakes. Of course, you're going to have to learn what the difference is, but there is a difference between these two. You could have any kind of button to remove your 10-round magazine that you want.
They call them featureless.
Yeah.
And you can go down to any one of the shops around here and you can buy a featureless set for your AR. The laws are ridiculous. All these laws do are try to hinder law-abiding citizens.
Right.
That's all they do. It has absolutely nothing to do with the criminal element that is still going to use these guns in crimes. Period.
Right.
Right now there's a big push on ghost guns.
Yeah.
You buy an 80% lower. You mill it yourself. You build your own firearm. There's nothing against the law that says you can't do that. California just passed a law that says you're going to have to now go apply for a serial number for that law through the Department of Justice. So now they know you got the gun. Well, I'm a law-abiding citizen under the law. I don't want to do that. It's under the law, and I can build myself an 80%er and build a rifle on top of it. They had 2 crimes in Southern California where, and I can't remember what 2 they were, but they're significant and got a lot of press coverage. The rifles used were ghost guns. Mm-hmm. Go after them. Don't go after me, and don't go after the other law-abiding citizens that are abiding by the law.
Exactly.
Go after them, and perfect segue. 62 failed and 66 passed. Mm-hmm. That was huge. Mm-hmm. That was one of the good things that happened last night in California.
Right.
62 was the law that would have repealed the death penalty, right. And 66 streamlined it. Mm-hmm. And when they wrote 66, they were smart enough that whichever one won by the highest margin would be the prevailing, so that even if they both passed. Well, 62 just outright failed, and 66 passed.
Right.
So when those knuckleheads use those types of weapons in a crime that is the sentence includes up to and including the death penalty, sentence them to the death penalty.
Right.
And then execute them.
Right. And that's what we don't do in this state.
No. But don't punish everybody. That's all they're doing with these gun laws. They're punishing law-abiding people.
That's right.
Not the criminals, because the criminals don't care.
The other thing, a little off topic, but on topic, we got to get rid of this list of guns, of approved guns in California.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
It's ridiculous.
And as I've been saying for a while, everybody, keep an eye on this roster, because the manufacturers are going to stop sending guns over to California for this, and because they're improving their guns, they're making new guns, they're changing generations, and they're not going to have the problem with the magazine disconnect. I mean, they believe it's a wrong item. I believe it's a wrong item. I want to be able to fire every single bullet I have, even if there isn't a magazine in my gun. Yeah, but no, California says no, that you can't do it. So I mean, it's crazy, and there's some wonderful guns that I want to get, and I can't.
You can't get them. No,
I can't have them.
No, I know. And the list is getting smaller and smaller because these gun manufacturers aren't willing to take that extra money. It comes down to money.
It's extortion. The state of California is extorting the manufacturers.
So because they're selling in the state.
And they have to keep paying this fee to stay on roster.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's absolutely ridiculous. And many of you out there probably don't even know about that. And that's why you don't see a whole lot of newer guns that are out there that you might pick up your NRA magazine and you read that and go, that's a great gun. I really want to get one. And you go over to the gun store and say, hey, I want one of these. And they go, sorry.
Can't get in California.
Can't get in California.
Nope.
So I'd like to know what that has helped. What crime has been stopped by a roster?
None.
I mean, it's the same thing with the micro-stamping that our new senator, unfortunately, has pushed. Just things that are just not enforceable. And
I agree.
It just hurt us as Californians. And when you guys going to wake up? You got to understand we are out of step with the rest of the country for the most part. And it's time to bring us back. Anyway, so we've talked about some of these things that really kind of cracked me up. Some of the propositions, like the disposable bag ones, requires plastic bag fees be directed towards specific environmental projects. It failed. It was no, so there were some brains there. But 67 passed, which bans single-use plastic or paper bags.
It bans them.
Yep, and it passed. So when you go shopping, whenever this goes in, I don't know what you're going to do with all this stuff on here if you don't remember to bring a bag in, because they can't provide you with anything. And that's special. That's California for you. We're just crazy. Let's talk a little bit about one of the things that I want to address, and those that have concealed weapons permits. They were concerned with the change in the language as to what you can determine as good cause.
It's nothing has changed.
That's what I want.
Nothing has changed.
Everybody to understand that it doesn't change it.
Nothing has changed. We're still the same in El Dorado County legally under the law. Good cause is still personal protection or self-defense. Nothing changes in that regard. Period.
So it was put in place. Help me understand this a little bit. This was put in and signed by Brown, so that any of the sheriffs, which I already thought they could do, have the ability to put whatever they wish to be good cause.
Which is the way it's always been.
Yeah.
Which is the way it's always been.
Nothing's changed.
As I understand, this was out of Peruta. This came out of Peruta when the court upheld it.
Huh.
Upheld Peruta.
Okay.
That was the suit that was going to say the sheriff can't deny it based on that good cause.
There you go. Right.
And the court said, no, the sheriff can.
Right.
And everybody went, oh my God, the sheriffs are going to stop issuing. And they're going to have these huge thresholds that people have to meet for good cause. No, the law, they just restated what the law already, didn't change the law whatsoever.
Okay.
Now, one of the questions that came up in, I believe it was Brown's bill, was about the fees that could be charged.
Right.
And then that there was a huge concern that this was an attempt to price them out of reach of the average person.
Exactly.
And that's not the case. It pretty much just mirrors what the law is, that we're only able to charge those fees that directly impact the cost.
To pay for
what it costs us to do it.
Right.
And that's something that, and I'll say it here, and I know folks aren't going to be happy with this when it happens, if it happens. But we are looking at those fees. El Dorado
Mm-hmm.
County hasn't raised those fees in it's been decades. But one of the things we're up against is, when I started in 2011, we had 748 licenses in the county. We're, if not already over, right at 5,000 now, with the same amount of staff. That revenue stream is not that much. We're
Right.
one of the lowest in the state.
Right. Right.
We're looking to, and as a result too, the time frame, 6-8 months, which is personally ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, we only have what we
You
have
have no
to do it.
control over
How
that
many?
part.
Well, I do. I could put a whole bunch more staff doing CCWs, but
Well, but
what would
is
they?
it-
What else?
is-
How would the other jobs they were doing?
Well,
get
all
done?
right, but is not a lot of this this weight not so much
A huge part of it's DOJ.
exactly
Huge part of it is DOJ, but also part of it is just getting in for the appointments.
right?
So we're looking at ways of reducing the appointments. We're looking at an online way of doing it called Permitium, I think is the name of the solution that we're looking at. But in with all of that, we're talking about revisiting our fee structure. I promise you it will not go skyrocket. We won't do that because I still want it to be absolutely within reach of everybody.
Right.
But it's time. It's been decades. We need to revisit the cost on that and see if we can recoup some of that back and help maybe with a position or reallocations to help speed up that process on our side.
Yeah, I think that would be good. One of the things my concern is on fees, and I'm with you. I know those fees haven't been changed for a long time. So what I worry about is either the individuals don't have the means, they're totally legit, they can qualify for the CCW, but unfortunately either some of our seniors or some of the people that may just not have a whole lot of money are going, it's either eating or getting my CCW. It's, you kind of go, oh gosh.
Well, maybe we can put in a provision for that, for show a hardship that we can make that work.
I think it might be
It's a good idea.
too. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Put in a hardship thing, and maybe we can get some group or something, or even make it people put in some money to help those that are legitimately cannot afford it, and I kick in a couple $100 to help people out, something like that. Maybe we can make a small group of people to do that.
Maybe.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's just
that's a
thought.
good,
I just throw it
absolutely.
out,
I agree.
So I just that had always been my worry, and you look at some of the states, and some of their fees are pretty high, pretty stiff. I mean, I've seen this. What is it? One of the states that doesn't really want to have a CCW, but they do, and maybe it's Illinois. The fee's like $350.
Yeah, no. We don't want to
No,
do
I'm-
that.
yeah.
We just want to get back into reason where we are with inflation and everything
Well, you
else
got to
that
cover
we've
your
seen.
you got to cover your overhead on that. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
And I think most people would, but that's just an example. I was
Sure.
just an example. So anyway, out of there, because I'm doing all these classes, I'm always asked these questions, and I try to dispel. We've got too many people out there, passing the wrong message down.
I know,
So I'm
I know.
spending
And
a
you're
lot of
really
my-
good about getting a hold of me and say, hey, this is what somebody told me.
Yep.
And nine times out of 10, when I look into it, nope, that's not what they were told.
Yep.
So
Yeah, no, and we're going to keep it that way, and that's one of the good things, that I keep kind of my finger on the pulse of what's going on and make sure that the right information is getting out. I pride myself in making sure that they're getting proper information and the things that they really need to know for their concealed weapons.
well, part of it, too, is you're holding us accountable.
True.
Absolutely, as it should be.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are we doing on facilities?
Oh, boy. So that's quite a hot topic right at the moment. So, the board approved the application for the funding.
Mm-hmm.
That application went to state, and then it was shipped to national. National was hoping to get it done. We were hoping National would get it done by September 30th. That day being the end of the federal fiscal cycle for USDA. On September 28th or somewhere around there, I got a phone call from the CAO, Don Ashton, who said, I got some good news and I got some bad news. I said, well, give me the bad news. He said, well, the bad news is they're not going to have it done. We're going to have to wait till the next allocation comes, what they're talking about, the middle of October. And then, but it's at the top of the list. I said, okay, what's the good news? He said, well, the good news is that the rate went down again.
No, yeah.
From 2 7/8 to 2 3/8.
All right.
Which is huge.
Oh, sure.
$6-8 million or so off the cost of the whole project. Total life of the loan. So that's the good news. So the middle of October came and went, and we haven't gotten our approval yet. I got a phone call last week from the CAO's office. They've been in contact with USDA. USDA said we're trying to get it to loan committee. We need to get it. We want to get it to committee, but we're waiting for this next round of money. Another, I forget, $600 million or something that was being allocated. That's what we're waiting for. County's position, this pretty much needs to be approved by December 9th. If we miss a December 9th deadline, the costs are going up. So those cost estimates all change because it will set off the whole string of delays on the back end.
Right.
So I called Congressman McClintock. I know he sits on the committee for USDA or land use or whatever it is. Talked to his one of his aides, Rocky Deal, who I really like the man. And by God, they got right on it. Started making some phone calls. Right now, as I understand, today as we speak, CAO's office is back in touch with USDA. They are going over the paperwork again with our county, with our CAO's office. One of the mentions they made was, well, we don't have the county's approved budget that takes this into account.
Yeah.
And the answer is, yeah, you had that in August when we submitted it. You have it. So they're going over all that. So hopefully any minute, any day, we'll have notice that it's been to committee and we have our conditional approval. Once that's done, at the same time, I spent all day, one day last week. I got a whole day on Thursday. I'm going to be in meetings with coming up with space specifications for the bridging documents that the design builder will bid on. So, I mean, we're looking at every office space, a typical generic office. This is what it is. It needs this type of outlets. It needs this type of IT infrastructure. It needs this type of lighting. It needs this type of flooring, this type of wall covering.
Okay.
All those specs on every single room space in the whole project.
Wow.
And it's pretty intensive, but I understand why we're doing it, so that the design builders are bidding apples and apples.
Right.
But also that we also have to make sure that we put into that enough creative freedom so that we get the best out of the design builders.
Right.
We don't want to lock them into this is what it is. We want their creativity. That's where the savings will come.
Yeah, that and you want to have somebody that has a group that has the ability to look ahead 20, 30 years as to, what may IT
Exactly.
what may be,
Exactly.
your telephone issues, what may be all this stuff, and they have to, they have to look forward so that you don't have a building that's already out of date.
Absolutely everything. I mean, it's amazing the conversations we're having in this meeting. It's great conversations, but it's almost like, you're kidding me. We have to decide on this, But that's what we have to go through. So that's all happening. The board, I believe, here soon they'll be talking about a contract for a construction management firm. It's just too big for the county. We said that since the beginning. So that will go out for an RFQ and then a request for qualifications and then a request for proposal on that. And then hopefully all this jives up and comes together around March. when we have everything together, everything done, it will go out to bid for the design bid, or by that time we will have selected a design builder.
Right.
And then from March until August will be the design and final acceptance of the project itself. And by hopefully still stay on timeline, by August, we will be in the ground. So it's still moving. There's still a lot of will behind it. I've been doing everything I can to keep the community updated on where we are.
Right.
So another thing that's come up, and I'm very, very careful talking about this, because I don't want the sentiment that, oh my God, you're kidding, now you're doing this too. But this is an opportunity that has arisen. Last year, SB 844 was passed. So part of AB1 realignment and the reduction of the state prison population was what was the state doing to, and leading up to that too, was what was the state doing to help local jurisdictions with jail capacity.
Okay.
So the first round was funding years ago in 2006 or 7 was AB 900. Jeff Neves at that time actually applied for AB 900 funding and was denied for an expansion on the jail. Was denied. Mm-hmm. Then came AB or SB 1022 was another round of funding. I was sheriff then. We didn't put in for it. I didn't believe we qualified, because we have room still in our jail.
Right.
And then along came SB 863 a couple years ago, and again we have room at the end. We didn't apply. The whole time that those were going on, I had different people telling me, "Hey, you need to get in line, because it's going to go away."
Right.
And it's not free money; it's tax dollars, it's taxpayers' dollars.
Right.
But it's virtually no cost to the county. Well, this last go around with money is now SB 844, and it really focuses on what I have said is one of the few good things that's come out of AB 109, which is our focusing of resources on that inmate population that we've identified that can benefit and will not recidivate.
Okay.
Remember, we've had those conversations
right.
about, instead of throwing all the money at all of them, no, we're focusing, and it's working. Mm-hmm. That's one of the good things that we've seen come out of this. Probably the only good thing, but one of the things we've seen come out of it. So this 844 is really focusing on that programming type of space, the medical type of space, and the mental health type of space, because we are now the de facto mental health hospitals in the state, whether we like it or not.
Right.
And then I mentioned the medical. So we have a longer-term inmate, a more elderly inmate that is staying a longer sentence.
Right.
So all the medical issues, whether we like it or not, that come along with it. So I sat down months ago, had a meeting with all of the stakeholders. I brought everybody together. We got the courts, Health and Human Services, probation, NAMI, mental health community, got everybody into one room and said, look, this is coming up. I don't think we can, in good conscience, not apply, for a couple reasons. Number one, if we can get, for a county our size, the maximum award will be $20 million with a maximum match of $2 million, of which can be all of the soft costs.
Okay.
So I said we would lose, and it's only available to those counties that have not received any awards from past funding streams.
Okay.
So 1022,
Anybody
any of
got the money
those
before,
can't get it.
Yep.
So we're in a very small pool. I said, so we have an opportunity for that type of funding for a building that can provide all these types of programming and things that we need for virtually nothing. That's number one. Number two, post AB 109, these legal lawyers that used to prowl the state prisons, which ended up in the lawsuit that created AB 109 for the overpopulation or the inhumane treatment, are now prowling our county jails.
Mm-hmm.
And our county jails are getting hit with lawsuits and ending up under consent decrees for the same reasons the state prison was. Because we're not set up like a state prison, and now we have the same responsibilities as a state prison.
Right.
So even if we apply and we're denied, the mere fact that we're always looking forward and we're trying to do the right thing just might be that extra little piece that keeps us out of a lawsuit. Or, being selfish, worst case scenario, the El Dorado County Sheriff's Office and El Dorado County Sheriff John DeAugustini ends up as a witness for the plaintiff and not a defendant in the civil lawsuit.
That'd be different. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do understand.
So we're looking at that. We just had a meeting this morning on the next steps. Remember when I talked about we're renting our jail beds?
Right.
And that funding stream, I got the board to agree that money can only be used for capital improvements and emergencies.
Right.
So we use some of that, which is we have, I believe, over $500,000 in that pot of money already.
Mm-hmm.
So we used $80-some thousand of that or whatever it was for the needs assessment and hopefully the application process for that grant, that
Right.
SB 844. I think it's something that we have to do.
So we're looking at expansion of medical and mental, and as well as beds.
It will not increase our capacity.
Okay.
Part of the rules, part of the grant application is it can't increase our capacity.
Okay.
But what it will do is it will enable us to provide much more services for our mentally ill inmate population.
Right.
It will provide a better medical services to our inmate population. It will provide better programming and educational services to those that will benefit from us, including looking at vocational programs, teaming up with Folsom Lake College as an extension for a certificate programs, so that these inmates, when they come out, those have something and they can do something.
That'd be great.
And be productive, and
Yep.
they don't end up back in our
Yep.
jail.
Yep.
Another thing it will enable us to do is, because of classification, we're very restricted in our female population. We only have one pod for females for out of sight, out of no contact with the
Right.
males. It's really limited us and limited our space availability for ADSEG inmates, mental health inmates, those other inmates for single cells and whatnot, different types of control. So moving part of the female beds out to this new extension will free up a whole bunch of beds for classification in the old part.
Okay. Yeah. So that'll just make things a little bit easier. Not great. But
It opens up a whole bunch of versatile ways for us to manage our population better, as well as those other benefits of programming and what I call the touchy-feely stuff.
Right. Well, it needs to be done, and as we know, an awful lot of inmate populations are mentally ill, and with the right treatments, and I really like the vocational side of it. I think, it's the old, give a man a fish, a leak for a day, give him a fishing pole.
Teach them to fish, he'll feast.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's the same idea, I think. And I worry about that in our schools, too, to be honest with you. They've gotten so far away from shops.
And so on college bound. You got to go to college.
Yeah.
You got to go to college. Well, how about a trade? Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I agree.
not everybody's college bound. We need our electricians. We need our plumbers. We need
exactly.
You're going to go to college. You may not get a job, but get a trade.
Absolutely.
You'll have a job.
Yeah. So I mean, the funding's already been allocated. Some county's going to get it. I just don't think we can pass it up again. I think this is the time is ripe, and we need to do this.
Right.
I don't think this opportunity is going to come around again. If it comes around at all one more time. It's been discussed with the governor's office and BSCC, Board of State Community Corrections. If it comes around at all, again, it will be one more time, again, for those agencies that have not received any in the past, and it will be based on this application. They're already talking about possibly one more allocation next year. That's it, but it will be based on this application. So it's kind of, we have to.
Yeah.
We have to.
That'd be good. No, it's something that's needed. And
so a lot going on.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
A lot going on.
We all. Well, got anything else you wanna talk about? We pretty much covered today's topics.
Oh, gee. Quail season's open.
Yeah.
I'm eating tag stew this year. I didn't get a buck. I'm waiting for, hopefully I can get a little time this year. I haven't been duck hunting in 4 years. Hopefully I can get a little time to go duck hunting this year.
Need some weather.
I need a dog.
And well, you can rent a dog.
Yeah, I don't know. I never have my good dog. I put him down a couple years ago.
Yeah, I know, it's tough. It's tough.
13.
We've had this discussion all the time, particularly, if you're a bird hunter anytime, but it's either, you can buy your dog and spend, its lifetimes of money of owning that dog, or you can just get something that's already trained and ready to go. I've always rented dogs, and it works out well.
I know,
but there's people that says, and I've got to own it, and I understand.
My dog.
I love my dog. Yeah, I'm a dog person all the way. But we don't hunt anymore. We're retired from that part and just enjoying life as it is. So, yeah. So anyway, I think I'm hearing all good things. Again, I wanted to just tell you that on the CCW side, things seem to be moving along okay. When we're off the air, I'll share a story with you.
Okay.
But and the rest of it. But I think things have been going pretty good for the sheriff's department, and I'm happy to see the community outreach that the deputies themselves seem to be actually doing, and taking that vision that you had when you were coming into office. It took a while, but I'm starting to hear, because from people that these guys are really doing a very nice job. They're being civil, they understand what's going on, they treat people decently, doing all the things they shouldn't be doing anyway. And I think, you look at how successful we have been. As you said, there has not been a homicide in Dorado County this year. Not yet. But I know we have a few months ago, and I'm going to pray that.
Knock on wood every time I say it.
Yeah, we're going to pray that continues. But that, I think, is also partly to do with how well the sheriff's department is doing.
Well, I'd like to think you're right. But, I mean, if you look at most homicides anywhere, most of them are non-preventable. I mean, you're going to get they're knucklehead killing knucklehead. There's crimes of passion.
Right.
There's they're non-preventable. So
maybe EID's got something in the water that's common.
Maybe no. I'm not dumbfounded. I keep saying we're blessed.
Right.
I look at Sacramento, I look at Amador, I look at Placer, our neighboring counties. I look all up and down the state, and post Prop 47, post realignment, crime is through the roof. It's the first time in a long time we've seen that line really start taking a steep curve back up, and we're lucky it's not here yet. It's coming. It has to be here.
Yeah.
You can't release more people into the communities and not expect it. You just can't do it.
How are we doing? So let's I always let's look at the crimes and the situations as far as murders or killings that may take place in correlation to drugs. In the drug situation, I know we're having a horrible time with meth, right? And has that your enforcement and what's going on? Have we been getting onto the situations on these drugs, because that's what brings in the crime?
So yes, I mean our narcotics division, WeNet, on the West Slope does a fantastic job. We haven't had Well, I take that back. We have had some very significant cases in the recent past for methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine. Recently, SledNet, South Lake El Dorado Narcotics Enforcement Team in the Tahoe Basin, due to staffing issues that started over the past few years with the DA's office pretty much backing out, with just a part-time person assigned, probation not having staff to assign. South Lake Tahoe had 2 police officers, and we had a deputy and a sergeant. And we were having issues with staffing with that for just like FMLA leave or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So at a couple months ago now, I guess it was longer than that ago. It was in June, July, August, September, October. It was in June or July. We had a meeting, and I threw out the obvious that I saw coming. I says, it's ineffective. We only have so many people that are doing this. They're having to rely on WeNet anyway, West Slope, to do significant cases and calling on DEA or whatever. This is ineffective. Why? We can all use those staff in other functions and still be able to do those investigations with the staff we have on the West Slope, and that you have in the office in South Lake Tahoe. So we put it on hiatus until the plan was October, due to staffing. It's been operating fine. We've been both patrol deputies and South Lake Tahoe Police Department working together, have been doing narcotics investigations. When they need help, we've been sending up WeNet, and then also Trident, the Tri-County Narcotics Enforcement Team that was newly formed a year ago, down in Sacramento, which was a reincarnation of MAVMIT, which was the Mountain and Valley Marijuana Interdiction Team. Trident is doing outstanding cases. They just did a case a while ago, 20 pounds of meth, down in the valley that was destined for El Dorado County.
Right.
They're doing a fantastic job. So I think that maybe you do have a point there. They're doing so well, and they are really hammering on these drug dealers and these drug peddlers and users.
Somewhere else
They can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
We have a setback with Prop 47, reducing straight possessions to misdemeanors.
Yeah.
That gave us a little bit of a hit, but we're still not seeing the crime associated going up with it. But another thing that it allowed us to do was the sergeant's position that we had in Tahoe was a gal named Tasha Thompson. Tasha Thompson is now down at headquarters in Placerville on the West Slope, and she is the PIO, PR, social media person. I started it as kind of let's see if this works. I've always wanted to try this.
Sure.
Of course, I had captains and lieutenants that weren't too happy with me because they were screaming for that body, and I get it. They're protecting their own. I get it. That's good. They would have liked to have that body. But if you just take into account only our social media presence since she has been assigned to this position, and the clearance rate of crimes that we have been using Facebook for,
right,
the return on the investment has been unbelievable. It's almost like if you commit a crime in El Dorado County, and our detectives are having a little bit of a tough time or whatever, we post it on Facebook, and sometimes literally within minutes, we have a suspect in custody.
I know. I've been watching it. It is impressive.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, social media is doing a lot for law enforcement. It really is.
It's great. And then the mere fact that we have, and we talked about it on the show many months ago, our followership is growing and growing and growing.
Right.
So that when we do have that bad thing happen in El Dorado County, and we need to get clear, concise, accurate, fast information out to as many people as possible,
right,
we now have that ability.
Right.
It's been phenomenal.
Yeah. It's worked out really well.
We finally caught up with the 21st century
How about
in that regard. Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, in the DA's office is also doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, but they don't have as many as we have.
No, they don't.
Not that there's no
They should
competition
be.
there, but no, we're
Yeah.
way ahead of them.
No, you are. You are. You're doing really well. So that's good to see that all that's working and that our numbers are down. I thank God. Yeah. So.
Keep your fingers crossed.
So how you got things set for Thanksgiving and Christmas? You're gonna have all the grandkids and things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be. Matter of fact, you mentioned my grandkids. I'm gonna. Probably the biggest honor of my administration so far is I was asked a while back ago to be the keynote for Veterans Day Memorial Service this Friday, and that reminded me when you mentioned the grandsons. They're a part of my speech that I'm going to give.
Oh, that's nice.
So, but yeah, we'll have everybody will be at our house for Thanksgiving and then Christmas, and
That'd be great.
it'll be good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, once again, I want to thank you very much for coming in and doing the show and informing all those out there, and as well as myself, about all the things that's going on in the county with law enforcement. And I think it's a good thing. It's a good tool for people that got a question. Go to our Facebook page and go to take a look at what we got going, and you get to see your feeds, and they're all there. And I just want to thank you once again for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.